few years ago, I happened to read an interview with the late Vangelis, and when asked about his relationship with the piano as an instrument, he answered, "Piano is the most versatile synthesizer." And this was really striking to me because at the time I was working to Paint Piano, which is a prepared piano library on the Silence and Other Sounds catalog, which you can find on our website, of course. And these Vangelis words came to my mind recently when I discovered the amazing soundtrack of The Brutalist by Daniel Blumberg. And in particular, the opening track called The Ship is based on this ticking, unnerving prepared piano loop, which keeps going for like 5 minutes and in my opinion really sets what I would define a deeply psychological mood. I've been digging a little bit about Daniel Blumberg's work on this soundtrack and I discovered about his massive use of prepared piano used in very different ways, and the result is amazing. Of course, I cannot post the soundtrack here. Honestly, I have not watched the movie yet, but it's a really great work and I highly recommend you to checking it out. In this video, I'm going to show you a cue that I made just by using Silence and Other Sounds libraries, in particular Paint Piano, inspired to say soundtrack by Daniel Blumberg. And hopefully it's going to show you how vast can be the sound palette of a piano if played and recorded in an unconventional way. Let's listen. So what I found really interesting in the original track to which this cue is inspired is the fact that the most prominent element, the central element of the whole cue, is this ticking piano loop that goes along the whole track. As I say, the original one is around 5 minutes and you can hear this loop all along the track. It's a kind of element that probably another composer would have used as a background thing or maybe as an introductory rhythmic element, but in this case, it's the main thing. There is also a theme, which you can hear in the second part of the cue that I've tried to recreate, but to my ears, it seems that it's a specific choice of the composer to use this loop as something that creates a feeling of weight, okay? And if you listen to the original track, on the top of this loop, you can hear all sort of nuanced prepared piano sounds, okay, that kind of conduct the listener or the viewer through this feeling of weight. Okay, so let's see how I try to recreate that by using my own libraries and specifically playing piano. So I'll play solo just the rhythmic part, which is this one. Okay, the rhythm is exactly the same as in the original, and the tone, the timbre, it goes pretty darn close to my ears. Once again, go listen to the original one and then you're free to compare. And how I did that? Well, basically, as you can see here, it's 2 layers of playing piano. And playing piano is basically, it has 8 contact instruments, and 2 of these are synced loops. Okay, they are tempo synced prepared piano loops, which have been played and recorded in a lot of creative ways. Basically, classical prepared piano technique consists in placing objects and other stuff on the piano string and to see how this alters the timbre and the sound. And sorry, maybe my microphone is a little bit too distant. Yeah, maybe a little. Now it's a little bit better. And so this loop right here is this one. And the other one, I'll play it solo, which doubles the one that I just played for you. It's this one. So it's just this small rhythmic cell that overlaps with the previous one and recreate the same rhythmic figure. And this has been created by basically stopping the piano strings. I can't remember exactly because now it's been a while, because playing piano was released in 2020, so it's 5 years, almost 5 years. And I use all sorts of objects to compromise, let's say, the response of the strings. But in this case, you can clearly hear that the sound is stopped and create this rhythmic yet tonal kind of loop. And on the top of that, on the top of this loop that keeps going for the whole cue, you can hear other more nuanced prepared piano sounds that I created again with a variety of techniques that you can see in these 4 tracks here. And in all of these, it's always playing piano. So I'll play the loop plus these other sounds on the top. I'll solo all of them. So let's see what happens. So it sounds a little bit to me like a crawling kind of sound, okay? And this is in particular for this track where I have a bowed piano. And this is another prepared piano technique that basically consists in taking a cello bow, okay, just a bow, and placing it across the strings and then rub the bow, which is horsehair, if I'm not wrong, against the strings. And this creates all this sort of atonal / tonal, it's pretty hard to guess, kind of effect, which has this, sort of kind of texture on the back of it. And, I really like it. And with this one, I will try to recreate all the aforementioned nuanced, more background prepared piano sounds that are on the top of the loop. Okay. And, this one in particular, bowed piano, is really interesting because they are very textural sounds, but it's not just, not just actually the bowed piano, but also the piano stabs that you can hear, for example, like this one. These are very textural as well. And the interesting thing is that you can create a whole texture in a very unconventional way. You know, when you normally when you want to create a texture kind of effect, you will just load a pad or something, you know, that keeps looping forever and just press one key and just let it evolve across the track, right? This is the normal approach. But with this kind of sounds, you can build a whole texture, you know, in a little bit more, you know, meticulous way to my ears, and the result is very, very interesting because it's a very organic sound. You know, the processing here is very minimal. I remember that when I recorded all of these piano sounds, all I did was just, you know, during the editing stage, do the noise a little bit and apply some very gentle EQ. So the sounds are exactly as they are, and the whole manipulation of the sound happens within the library, within the instrument. And there is something that I would like to show you, is that the original key of the original track is C, which is the same one that I use here. And in Paint Piano, like in many of our other libraries, you have this button here that, well, that is called global. Okay, now it's if I activate it, you can see that the pitch knob changes, and you can tune all the samples available to the same root key. Okay, if I go back to the loop, I did exactly the same thing. So with this command, you can tune simultaneously all the samples that you have in the patch to the same root key, which again is C in this case. And this can be really useful if you are going to stack multiple loops to create something new, something interesting, and you want them to have all in the same key. Okay, so even if I just, you know, just pick randomly a number of loops from this patch, okay? You know, you can come up pretty quickly with rhythmic ideas, with interesting loops that for this style of music are you know, really useful. Well, I would say that in my cue, I've taken a little bit more trailer-oriented kind of direction, because this is normally what I do. So it's a little bit more creepy, I would say, rather than you know, psychological. It steers a little bit more, leans a little bit more towards horror. But that's because also the nature of the library that I use, because we have a lot of horror libraries in our catalog. But you know, I wanted to come up with an idea that allowed quickly to create interesting combination, and I think that simultaneously tuning all the samples at once can be really useful. This is something that I do, well, not using by all these samples here. Here there are multiple piano loops, two in this case, which are played simultaneously, and it creates a really nice evolution to my ears, starting from the initial one and adding these ones as well. And another interesting thing is that once that you global pitch all the samples, you can also shift the octave from -2 to +2, which is something that I did, I think, here, yeah, with the piano stabs, which are all tuned to C, but they have been pitched down of 1 octave in order to create a more textural kind of effect. And this is where basically I spent most of the time in working on this cue, because once again I wanted to, you know, to absorb to a certain extent, to a certain degree, the same approach that Daniel Blumberg had for his track The Ship, once again for the soundtrack of the Brutalist. Some other elements that I've used, again from Paint Piano, are these ones here, Paint Piano Rise, which I use to create a little bit more tension and release kind of effect around here at the cue. And as you see, I didn't use, I just dragged the WAV samples, which is something that you can do in most of our libraries. I would say that Cartago percussion library is the only one exception where the samples of the acoustic percussion sequencer are not draggable, you know, are not available as WAV samples from the folder. But all the other ones, you can go straight to the samples folder and you will find the WAV sounds, and you can just drag and drop them to the audio track of your DAW. And in case of rising sounds, if I want exactly the sound to drop on a given measure, on a given, you know, specific time, it is more convenient to me to just drag and drop the waveform and just slide it back and forth in order to make sure that it drops exactly as I want. And so here we have this. I forgot to show also the rising sound. And then it rises back again to introduce the second part. So what I really found fascinating about the prepared piano is that even if you use this kind of sounds, which are more textural, more rising, sometimes they sound like impacts, okay, it's not the kind of sound that naturally comes to your mind when you think about piano, you know, which can be very delicate, you know, very emotional, very cultured kind of instrument, I would say, okay? When you do this kind of experiments, you know, you come up with a completely different typology of sounds, but still, to my ears, you can identify some peculiarity that you associate with the piano. And this is where Vangelis' words about the fact that piano is the most versatile synthesizer really, you know, strikes a note, I should say, pun intended, to me. It's also, you know, something that I'm really interested in the whole development of Silence and Other Sounds library and about approaching things in a different way. But for the prepared piano, I think that here the experimentation could have gone on for hours and, well, for weeks probably. You know, just a little bit back story, but a little bit context about how I recorded all these sounds. Because at the time when I decided that I wanted to do a prepared piano library, I was looking for pianos, of course, and I managed in Naples, where I'm from, to find this huge warehouse of ancient and damaged pianos, you know, stuff that had to be repaired, and even stuff from the 19th century. You know, there was this 2 floors warehouse with just pianos. And I camped there, I think, for 3 days recording all of this stuff. But I could have spent even months over there with you know, and never running out of fresh ideas. Okay, let's have a listen also to. I would say that if I could break down this track in different parts, well, the whole rhythmic and textural piano is this one that I just quickly showed you. Then you have percussions and impacts. Here, some textures, and then a theme that I did with the Aulos instruments in Malaventum Pompeii, where I try to recreate the theme in the original one by Daniel Blumberg again. So first have a look, let's have a listen to the percussions. I'll solo this part here. And again, as you can see, it's a mixture of MIDI parts and WAV samples that have been dragged to the audio track in Ableton Live. And it's mostly Cartago, which you probably have heard about. It's our percussion library. For example, the booms here. Well, let's just play it from here. So all these dark booms that you can hear in this instrument. Almost sounds like a heartbeat to me. It's all Cartago, in particular one of the many featured instruments that is called actually ominous low end, where it's just booms. I think it's 4 of these instruments, probably ominous low end, with all these sort of low thumps, booms, kicks, this kind of effect with a very dark sound signature, so to speak. And it's actually 2 of them. And, you know, the most rhythmic part comes from the actual contact instrument. And the other one, which is just accents on the one, is these organic stumps here that I drag and dropped to the track. And then if I move here, we have the other instrument in Cartago, which is the organic percussions. this gives a more, walking kind of thing, which highlights the feeling of weight that I perceived in the original track and that I wanted to recreate here as well. We have also some other stomps from Dojo, which we have here to make, to give more weight to the accents. And then some impacts and whoosh sounds again from Cartago, from the drum kit sounds. Let's move here now to the textures. And with the exception of this one, String Phobia Escape 2, which is from our free library Relict, which you can still download, on our website. This has been the very first one that I ever released, but it's still going pretty well. A lot of people are still downloading it and using it, so that's a huge satisfaction to me. The other two layer sounds, let's just give it a quick listen. It's Dojo, which is our cinematic synths library, which features two instruments, and the more textural, atmospheric one is this one, the Kata synth. And here, the whole patch, the whole snapshot is based on this layer that is called Crystal Basquet. Well, I have another video on the channel that is specifically focused on the Crystal Basquet, amazing instrument, which is really great sound. And I'll just play it a little bit for you. It's a beautifully textural kind of instrument that frankly I could play it for hours because I really like how it evolves along the sound. And when I wanted to create, an intense texture with an underlying kind of psychological dimension, when this is the kind of feeling that I want to evolve, this is always my go-to sound. And I probably should sample it a little bit more because also in this case it's an endless treasure box of sonic goodies. And then I have also a layer of Ellen to add a little bit more, let's say, chilling kind of atmosphere. You can hear this kind of scream, demonic scream in background. It's this one, Helen, which is entirely based on horror voices. Yeah, they combine to each other in a really nice way to my ears. And now let's move to this part of the cue where I try to recreate the theme, okay? Which in the original track has been created, I think, with orchestral brass. It has a more orchestral kind of, not huge orchestra, small orchestra, maybe a horns, quartet, something like that. And as I gave myself the limitation to only use my library, the only one that I could use that could go close was actually Malevento Pompeii and the Aulos instrument, which is an ancient Greek instrument that actually gives this more, ancient kind of feeling. And let's play it from here. Well, I'll play the whole cue. Of course, this brings the whole cue in a different direction, because it starts a little bit with this, you know, atmospheric, a little bit chilling kind of vibe, so to speak. And then in this second part, these instruments adds, you know, a little bit more, I would say, ethnic, quote unquote, kind of feeling. We completely detached from the original one, but this was out of, you know, of the limitation that I gave myself to just use, that I gave to myself to just use my libraries. Just a few words about the aulos. It's, well, actually its origin is Greek, but it was kind of appropriated by the Romans centuries later, and it's a really beautiful instrument, as I said. Here I've tried to, let's say, recreate the original feeling of the instrument, in particular for ornaments. For example, you can play something like this. Probably if you can see my right hand, if I just hold one key, let's say C, okay, just by keeping a note and then fastly playing, you know, another one and releasing it, it goes back to the original one. And this is similar to what happens with a true woodwind instrument. When you just lift your fingers from the hole, you know, you go back to the original note, to the previous note, so to speak. And in my opinion, this helps to recreate, you know, the actual mood, you know, the actual approach to the instrument. One thing that I would like to say, you know, that when we market our libraries, we have to, you know, kind of give to the people out there an idea of what it is. For example, pain piano, horror piano, or Malamentum Pompeii, you know, epic stuff. You know, these are just labels that gives you a blueprint of the kind of sound that you can expect from the library. But this does not stop you to, you know, to put it in action also in things that are not specifically horror or epic or Viking or whatever. In the specific case of pain piano, despite it's a 5 years old library, at least for me, well, obviously I'm biased because I developed and created the library, but I managed to use it also in things that are not specifically horror. For example, I did some trailer remixes of some pop songs, you know, which I wanted to darken a little bit, and I used pain piano. Was the result horror? Of course not. It still had, you know, that trailer kind of thrilling, I would say, atmosphere, but it was not horror. But still, pain piano and some other libraries, I mean, I might say the pretty much the very same also for other libraries not developed by me. This is just an encouragement, you know, an advice, if you don't mind, that sometimes, you know, you can use libraries outside of the scope, quote unquote, for which they were developed. So guys, hope that you enjoyed the cue and the whole video. In this case, please subscribe to the Silence and Other Sounds channel. As said in some previous videos, I'm doing my very best to keep going with these sound design oriented videos. In this one, I would like to contextualize a little bit more in a real soundtrack by paying my personal tribute to a piece of work that I really enjoyed. So once again, thanks for watching, don't forget to subscribe, and see you next time. Bye.